are not vanishing by accident. The reason you feel yourself fading, as though you are a ghost in your own story, is because the walls of your psyche are not guarded. You, the empath, are the open wound through which the world bleeds, and your disappearance is not a mystery, it is an inevitability. I have seen this many times. A soul deeply sensitive, tuned to the unspoken currents of others' needs, moving through life like a mirror without frame. You reflect the wounds of others so effortlessly that you forget your own outline. Your shadow no longer walks beside you. It merges with the shadow of others. And this, my friend, is the beginning of psychic erosion. Let us not romanticize empathy. It is not merely a gift. It is a task, a dangereuse inheritance. You believe you are helping, healing, being divine in your sacrifice. But what you call compassion, when unbounded, become possession, not demonic. No, but human, unconscious, ancestral. You are being possessed by the unlived lives of those around you. Imagine this. A woman dreams she is standing at the edge of a vast black ocean. Waves whisper her name, not in greeting, but in hunger. She steps forward, feeling responsible for the ocean's sorrow. She enters knee-deep, waist-deep, and soon her outline dissolves. She is no longer herself. She is an extension of the sea. This is the dream of the empath without boundaries. I tell you, the unconscious is a sea that does not give back what is not anchored. You are disappearing because your soul has no anchor in your own being. Empathy, when unexamined, is often the child of early survival. Many of you learn to feel others so deeply because it was once unsafe not to. You read your father's rage before it erupted. You absorbed your mother's despair before it became spoken. You became attuned to emotions as a means of self-protection. But what protects the child can poison the adult. What was once wisdom becomes a curse when carried untransformed into the future. And so the question is not how do I stop feeling? The question is who taught me that my safety depended on feeling everything? This brings us to a deeper mystery, the boundary. The word itself may appear clinical or therapeutic, but symbolically it is sacred. A boundary is not a wall. It is a membrane, conscious space between self and other. The ego needs it. Yes, but so does the soul without boundaries. The self becomes undefined. The archetypal pattern of the healer becomes distorted into the martyr. The one who could guide becomes the one who is crucified. When you cannot say no, you are not being spiritual. You are being unconscious, and unconsciousness always has consequences. Many of you think that disappearing is a byproduct of your kindness. It is not. It is a symptom of disembodiment. You are no longer living in your own psyche. You are orbiting others. You are plugged into emotional currents that were never yours to carry. The unconscious has no patience for this. It does not reward the erasure of the self. It punishes it with fatigue, illness, dreams of drowning, chronic confusion, and the recurring nightmare of being unseen. You are unseen, not because others fail you, but because you have abandoned the task of seeing yourself. There is a great paradox here. The more open you are to others, the more closed you must be to projection. Because when you are porous without discernment, others do not relate to you. They use you as a canvas for their own unconscious needs. You are no longer a person. You are a function. You become the good listener. The peacekeeper, the healer, the empath roles, not a soul. And roles, when played too long, become prisons. I must now speak of the archetype of the anima, the inner feminine in men, and its twin, the animus, the inner masculine in women. These archetypes, when unintegrated, often play out through empathic merging. A man projects his unintegrated anima onto a woman who feels too much. A woman projects her unresolved animus onto a man who expects her to carry his emotions. Empathy becomes the language of codependency. The sacred becomes enmeshed in the profane. And when you absorb another psyche, do you know what happens? Their complexes become your symptoms. Their shadows become your confusion. Their chaos becomes your exhaustion. You do not become more loving. You become less alive. To reclaim yourself, you must go inward, not outward. You must call back the projections, the identifications, the misplaced loyalties. You must mourn the self that disappeared while tending to others' fire. This is the individuation path, and it is not gentle. There will be guilt, the kind that whispers, but who will love you if you stop bleeding for them? There will be fear, the kind that says, they will leave you if you no longer make their wounds your home. There will be silence, the kind that arises when the crowd you served forgets you, exist once you are no longer convenient. But this silence is sacred. In that silence, your soul begins to reappear, not as a reaction, not as a savior, but as an essence, an I that is not defined by what you carry for others, but by what you are willing to carry for yourself. Have you ever noticed that the more empathic you are, the more invisible you feel? That is no coincidence. To be everything for everyone is to become nothing to yourself. It is the slow suicide of the spirit, justified in the language of virtue. But the unconscious knows better. It rebels, it sends dreams of escape, it constructs symptoms as protest, it births anxiety as a messenger. It demands that you return to the task of becoming whole, not holy. I once worked with a man who wept constantly for the pain of others, but could not name a single feeling of his own. He dreamed nightly of being buried alive beneath other people's faces. This is no metaphor. This is the psychic reality of the empath without sovereignty. You must understand this. Your empathy must pass through the crucible of consciousness. It must be tempered, discerned, honed. Otherwise, it is not empathy, it is absorption. And absorption is not love, it is fusion. And fusion is the enemy of selfhood. To reclaim boundaries is not to close the heart, it is to protect the vessel so the heart may beat stronger. You fear you will become cold, rigid, unfeeling. But I tell you, only when you hold your own shape can you truly love without losing yourself. Think of the chalice. Its sacredness lies not in its content, but in its structure Without rim, wine spills. Without form, offering becomes waste. The empath must become a chalice, not an ocean. And so, I ask you now, what part of you vanished when you said yes too often? Who inside you is waiting to return? Once the noise of others is no longer drowning your inner voice, you say you feel alone, but aloneness is not your enemy. It is your echo. It is the part of you that has been asking, begging, yearning for your return. You are not here to be consumed. You are here to be known, and to be known, you must first know the edge of your own being. Let us now descend deeper into the underworld of your psyche, where the wound of empathy first formed. For every empath I have ever met carries a mythic scar. This scar is not personal, it is ancestral. It is the mark of those who came before you. Those who were not heard, not seen, not held. You became the vessel of their longing, the mouthpiece of their silence. You are not just feeling for others. You are feeling for generations, but your body cannot carry what your lineage refused to heal. The body remembers. It remembers the nights you cried for someone else's sorrow. It remembers the tightness in your chest when the room was heavy with unspoken rage. It remembers when love felt like vigilance, not rest. And the body, dear one, will not be tricked. It will collapse, ache, shut down if you refuse to listen. And so I implore you, return to your temple, close the doors, sit with your breath, ask not what others need, but what part of you is dying from overexposure. Ask not who you must save, but who inside you is still waiting to be chosen. You are disappearing, yes, but not beyond recall. You are like a flame flickering in wind. The wind is not evil, it is simply unaware of your fragility, but you can build a lantern, you can protect the flame. And the flame, once protected, does not stop burning. It grows. When you begin to reclaim your light, the world will not rejoice. You must understand this. The people who benefited from your invisibility will mourn your reappearance, and they will not call it what it is. They will call it selfishness, coldness, distance. They will say, you've changed, and they will be right. You have changed. You have remembered that you have a center. Empaths without boundaries are not loving. They are starving. They give not from fullness, but from depletion. They give not from soul, but from survival. They give not to bless, but to be needed. And need is the drug of the forgotten self. I once encountered a dream, a woman in white robes walking a tightrope across a void. Below her, the abyss. Above her, a crown of stars. She teetered, terrified, yet smiling. She believed she was being spiritual, ascending, transcending ego. But in truth, she was betraying herself. She had no tether to her body, no rope to her roots. She was not transcending, she was vanishing. This is the danger of empathic inflation. When you mistake collapse for compassion, when you confuse numbness for peace, when you wear burnout as a halo, there is a shadow behind your giving. It is the fear that if you stop, you will no longer be loved. But love that demands your disappearance is not love. It is consumption. You are not here to be devoured. To walk this path consciously requires confrontation with your parents' unmet needs that became your own, with the childhood guilt that shaped your identity around emotional caretaking, with the inner child who learned that to feel safe, she had to become the therapist. The fixer, the saint, but you were never meant to be the one who saves. You were meant to be the one who lives, and living requires boundaries, not walls, but sacred fences, the kind that say, this is me, that is you. I will feel with you, but I will not bleed for you. Bleeding is not nobility. It is psychic self-harm. The individuation process requires you to enter the underworld of your identity, to strip away the personas you've worn like armor. And no persona is more seductive than that of the empath. The empath is praised, cherished, applauded, but rarely seen, for who sees the one who is always seeing, who listens to the one who always listens, who carries the carrier. When you begin to withdraw your energy, not out of anger, but out of awareness, you will feel a death. It is a death of the version of you that believed love was earned through suffering. It is the death of the role you played in other stories. And like all deaths, it will bring grief. But grief is not the enemy. It is the midwife of rebirth. In the ashes of your old identity, something ancient will stir, something primal, something sacred, your soul. And the soul has no interest in being liked. It wants to be whole. Wholeness does not mean harmony at all costs. It means alignment. And sometimes alignment requires rupture. It requires saying no, stepping back, choosing yourself, even when the world calls you unkind. But let me tell you this, every time you choose your center, the unconscious rejoices. Every time you say no to depletion, piece of your shadow is integrated. Every time you hold your boundary, your soul takes a breath. This is not selfishness, it is sacred stewardship. You are the vessel of something eternal. And if the vessel breaks, the essence cannot pour. Do not betray your essence to please those who do not know how to hold it. I once heard a soul speak through patient's dream. I am tired of waiting. I am tired of being a whisper beneath everyone else's screams. How many of you have souls waiting beneath the noise? How many of you have silenced the sacred because the world made you a sponge? You do not need to apologize for existing. You do not need to be less sensitive. You need to be more discerning. You do not need to stop feeling. You need to stop fusing. Fusing is the act of becoming one with what you are meant to witness. And the witness cannot witness if it dissolves. You are not here to dissolve. You are here to differentiate, to become conscious of what is yours and what is not, to look at another's wound and say, I see you, but I am not you. To hear another's sorrow and say, I feel you, but I will not drown for you. To love another and say, I am with you, but I do not abandon myself to stay with you. This is the new empathic paradigm, not absorption, not martyrdom, but presence with sovereignty, a presence that has edges, a presence that has breath, a presence that does not vanish. Many of you have never truly met yourselves. You have only known yourselves in relation to others. As the caretaker, the feeler, the psychic sponge. But who are you when no one else is in the room? Who are you without the roles? That is your task now, to find that one, to become that one, and I warn you, when you do, your life will change. You may lose relationships built on your self-erasure. You may lose identities built on overgiving. You may lose the illusion that you are only worthy when you are needed, but you will gain your soul and nothing, no approval, no praise, no temporary connection can compare to the feeling of living from your essence. There is a stillness there, a fire that does not burn out, a light that does not demand you shrink. Let us speak now of the archetype of the self, not the ego, not the mask, but the deep center of your being. The self is not interested in being liked. It is interested in being lived, and it cannot be lived through martyrdom. The self requires a container, a body, a boundary, a psyche that knows what it is and what it is not. Only from there can you touch the divine. Only from there can your empathy become medicine, not poison. For empathy is sacred, but only when wielded with awareness. Without awareness, it becomes contagion. You absorb what is not yours, and in doing so, lose what is. But when you stand in your own energy, you do not absorb, you illuminate. You become the lantern, not the sponge. And the lantern lights without being consumed. So I say this not as a judgment, but as an invocation. Stop disappearing. The world does not need more exhausted empaths. It needs embodied ones. Empaths with fire in their spine and roots in the earth. Empaths who can feel without collapsing. Empaths who can say no without guilt. Empaths who can love without losing themselves. Empaths who are not afraid to be seen. You are here. You are whole. You are worthy even when you are not saving anyone. Even when you are just breathing. Even when you are not useful. You exist outside of others' needs. You exist as a sovereign soul, and it is time to return to yourself. There is a moment, always a moment, when the empath stands at the psychic crossroads. It does not come with thunder. It does not announce itself. It whispers, a glance in the mirror. When you no longer recognize the person looking back, a long exhale at the end of a conversation where you said everything except what you needed, a night where the silence becomes deafening, because even the voices within you have grown tired of negotiating their right to exist. That moment is sacred, because it is then that your psyche begins to rebel. The unconscious, which had long tolerated the overextension of your emotional energy, now begins to withdraw its support. You begin to forget what peace feels like. You feel unanchored. You are no longer who you were, and not yet who you must become. It is the dark wood of the soul, and in that darkness, the shadow appears not as a monster, but as a teacher. It speaks with the voice you forgot belonged to you. It says, you have betrayed me. You gave away my time, my energy, my life, to feel loved by people who never knew your name beneath your service. And you weep, not because the shadow is cruel, but because it is finally honest. The truth is, you were never meant to feel everything. You were meant to feel truth. And truth has weight. It is not always soft. It is not always sweet, but it is what heals. When you reclaim your truth, others may no longer recognize you. You will no longer fit the role of understanding one Good listener, selfless angel, these are archetypes built not on wholeness, but on fracture, built on your silence, on your guilt, on your trauma masquerading as virtue. There is no virtue in vanishing. There is no holiness in leaking your energy to every passing emotion, and there is no salvation in becoming the emotional landfill for unconscious people. You have mistaken their dependency for connection. But dependency is not love. It is a bind, a chain, a silent contract. You exist to carry what I refuse to feel. And you said yes, not because you wanted to, but because you forgot you had a choice. Let us now speak of choice. In the psyche, choice is power, but power is not domination. It is differentiation to know what is mine and what is not, to know when I am feeling with you and when I am being used by you, to know when my yes is honest. And when my yes is survival dressed in a smile, you have choices now. You can sit in silence with someone's sorrow without needing to solve it. You can witness someone's storm without letting it blow through your nervous system. You can feel compassion and still walk away. You can love someone and still refuse to let them nest in your bones. This is not coldness. This is clarity. And clarity is the language of the soul when it finally takes the microphone from the wounded inner child. I once walked beside a woman in a dream. She was barefoot on broken glass, holding a lantern above her head for others to see, but her feet were bleeding. And no one noticed. They only followed the light. She looked at me and said, "If I drop this lantern, they'll be lost." And I said, "But what if your light is not theirs to follow? What if it was meant to guide you back to yourself?" She wept and dropped the lantern. Sometimes the most spiritual act is to stop being the light for others and become the warmth for yourself. Let us go further. The empath, when unconscious, is often an exile, not from society, but from self. And this exile did not begin yesterday. It began the first time you were told you were too much, too emotional, too sensitive, too reactive, too attuned. And so you split, you buried your chaos and amplified your calm. You silenced your pain and amplified your peacekeeping. You dismembered your psyche so you could be palatable. But the soul cannot be digested. It can only be lived. So now your task is not to fix your empathy, but to remember your wholeness. You were never too much. You were too unguarded. You were too fused. You were a door without a lock, a heart without a rib cage. That ends now, because if you keep disappearing, you will not survive this life. You may exist, but you will not live. You will not create. You will not love from truth. You will not know the beauty of being known, not for your service, but for your essence. Essence does not bend. Essence does not apologize for existing. Essence does not shrink so others feel taller. You must now allow the archetype of the warrior to rise in you, not to fight, but to stand, to say, "This is my body, this is my time, this is my soul. And no, you may not enter unless I invite you." Boundaries are sacred contracts with the self. They say, "I matter." And that phrase, spoken from the center of your being, is the most radical thing an empath can utter, because you have spent a lifetime mattering to others. Now, you must matter to yourself. And when you do, when you finally return to yourself, you will not stop feeling, you will feel more, but from groundedness, not guilt, from wholeness, not wound, from sovereignty, not sorrow. You will begin to recognize the difference between empathy and entanglement, between compassion and codependence, between love and emotional servitude. This is your reawakening. You are not disappearing. You are reconstituting. You are leaving behind the illusion that love must cost you yourself, and stepping into the truth that love, when real, does not require you to vanish. It requires you to stay in your body, in your truth, in your soul, fully. And that, dear one, is the most empathic act of all. So now the final question arises, like smoke from the ruins of an old self. If I am not what others need me to be, then who am I? This is the sacred threshold, the doorway between the persona you inherited and the soul you must become. To cross it, you will need to release the old contracts written in the ink of survival. The unspoken agreements that said, I'll abandon myself if it means you'll stay. I'll carry your sadness if it means I won't be alone. I'll become your light. If it means I won't be forgotten. These vows were made when you were too young to understand their cost. And now they must be burned. This burning is not punishment. It is purification. It is the return of fire to the empath psyche. Not the fire that destroys, but the fire that illuminates, that alchemizes, that says, I will no longer sacrifice my truth on the altar of your comfort. You must become sacred again to yourself. There will be echoes from your past that protest the parts of you that were addicted to being needed, the archetypes within that fed on the praise of being the savior, the understanding one, the ever-available presence. They will scream when you stop. They will call you cruel when you choose rest. They will tell you that you are wrong when you feel joy without obligation. Do not listen. They are not your soul. They are echoes, ghosts of a pattern that kept you small. The soul speaks in silence, and in that silence, you will hear a different voice, one that does not beg, one that does not tremble, one that does not shape-shift to be worthy. It will say simply, I have waited for you. It will not ask for proof. It will not ask for penance. It will ask only that you stay. And as you stay, you will feel the tendrils of your energy withdraw from places they never belonged. The people you overcared for, the wounds you inherited, the conversations you kept alive long after they stopped feeding you. You may feel empty. That emptiness is not loneliness, it is space. The space where you will begin to build the self, not built around utility. But essence, you were not made to be a hallway for others' emotions. You were made to be a home, a sanctuary, a sacred, sovereign place where your energy is not a resource to be mined, but a mystery to be honored. And from this inner sanctuary, you will begin to love again, not as a reflex, not as compensation, but as a radiant extension of a self that is no longer afraid to exist. And this love will look different. It will not say yes when it means no. It will not smile through depletion. It will not hold space when it needs to rest. It will not be afraid to disappoint. It will not be afraid to be misunderstood, because it will not be performing, it will be true. And when you are true, you become a mirror, not a sponge. You reflect others back to themselves, but you do not lose your shape. You remain when others project. You remain when others withdraw. You remain when the world pulls at your edges. You remain. This is the power you never knew. You had the power to remain intact in a world that demands your fragmentation. I speak to you now, not from theory, but from the edge of the great collective wound, the wound of over-identification of the empath lost in the archetype of the healer, the martyr, the saint. I have seen where it ends, not in peace, but in bitterness, not in connection, but in collapse. And I am telling you, there is another way. There is a path where your sensitivity becomes sovereignty, where your compassion becomes clarity, where your care becomes choice. But only if you stop disappearing, only if you say, I will not trade my presence for your comfort, only if you say, I choose myself, even if it means you walk away. Only if you say, I am not a function, I am a soul. That soul is watching you, listening, waiting. It is not waiting for you to be perfect. It is not waiting for you to be healed. It is simply waiting for you to remember that it exists. So breathe now, not for them, for you. Inhale your own name, exhale your return. And the next time you feel yourself fading, ask, is this love or is this erasure? Is this presence or is this programming? Is this giving or is this self-abandonment? And then choose differently. Choose you, because the world doesn't need more empty angels. It needs empaths who are embodied, present, radiant, ponderate, alive, alive in the body, alive in the truth, alive in the self. And when you live from that place, you will not disappear. You will blaze, not to light others' paths alone, but to remind the world I exist, I matter, I am here, and I am not leaving myself again